copy.
Roger, understand.
Alright, target's at 2 o'clock, you've been away. Yeah, I can't see the vessel anymore. Thunder, should we come out your side now? Okay, I see it now.
Early one morning when I was 14, my mother came into my bedroom and shook me awake. "Don't worry," she said. "It'll be okay. They called the ore boat back, but it'll be all right." I had no idea what she was talking about, or why we should be worrying about a boat with oars being called somewhere. Later, I found out she was talking about a giant freighter on Lake Michigan. It carried iron ore to the steel mill in southeast Chicago, where my father worked as a shear operator. The Coast Guard had been sent out to stop the ship from delivering its cargo
Excellent, thank you.
because the banks were about to foreclose on the mill. It was March 28, 1980. I remember the date because it divides our lives into the time before the mill shut down and after the mill shut down. My dad's mill was only the first of many to close. When I was a kid, thousands of people worked in the mills. Now not a single mill is left in Chicago, and all those jobs are gone. My dad had worked in the mills his whole adult life, but after 1980, he never held a steady job again. Southeast Chicago is located about as far away from downtown as you can get in the city. A lot of people don't even know the area exists. They drive over it on the Chicago Skyway. Even the exit ramp here is numbered 0. What was it like before the Skyway?
Everything come down Indianapolis Boulevard. Everybody heading east had to come this way.
It's a familiar story in America. We have a word for it, deindustrialization. And we talk about it as if it's a force we can't do anything about. Like a hurricane that destroys everything in its path. It seems like all we can do is accept it and try to move on.
There ain't much sense going any farther. Ain't nothing here. We're running out of time.
Yeah, I know we gotta go to Mom. So where was 5 Mill?
5 Mill was way back there.
Back there. This place was big though, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. They had letters around. It's been so long, I don't even remember half of this.
Give him a big huggy. Oh.
My parents celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary in 1987. That year, one of my mom's best friends, Leslie Paterka, set out to make a video for them, documenting the neighborhood and their lives.
Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad.
It's hard for me to watch it now, and not just because of my haircut, but because it's a reminder of the hard times my family was still going through, 7 years after my father lost his job.
Here's some wonderful graffiti. It says Historic Southeast Side.
What's amazing, though, is the careful way Leslie tries to film every street corner, every landmark on the southeast side.
The Chicago Skyway. It's with us now, whether we like it or not. I'm standing now.
These were the streets my mom and dad had spent their entire lives on, and it seemed like she wanted to leave nothing out, like she wanted to capture it before it all disappeared.
The late, great Wisconsin steel. It's nice that we're getting it on film because they're tearing it down, and someday it'll be only a memory. So goodbye to Wisconsin steel.
I left home for school when I was 16. And since then, I've mostly spent my life in places where Wisconsin Steel and all the mills aren't even a memory. But no matter how far I've gone, I've still felt tied to the neighborhood by what happened. While I was still in school, I was diagnosed with cancer, possibly caused by the industrial pollutants I had grown up around. It seemed like even my body was tied to the southeast side.
How do you know this is working? It's a little bit in the plate. Can you talk loudly towards the box, please?
Yes, we can.
While I was home recovering, I started making cassette tapes of my sisters and other family, talking about everything that had happened.
Okay, can we start this, please? We're taping now. First question, like how old were you when Wisconsin Steel went down?
I was in high school.
I'm not sure why I did it. I was studying anthropology, and maybe I was trying to document the culture I had grown up with. But the tapes just ended up sitting in a bag in my desk drawer. Today, my family is still on the southeast side, and that keeps me coming back. It keeps me trying to understand. So more than 20 years after the ore boat was called back, my husband and I decided to shoot some interviews about deindustrialization in southeast Chicago. Hey, Dad. We have a question for you.
Yeah.
We were wondering if, before we go to lunch, can we just ask you a couple questions about the neighborhood?
What's the neighborhood?
Yeah.
No, you don't want to put me in the neighborhood. No.
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 Or what about, like, the mills going down? Put a little mic on you?
Oh, you don't want to do that.
So who do you think we should ask about to talk a little about Wisconsin going down? Because there's not too many left.
No, not many guys around anymore. We all made a mistake hanging around here, listening to these politicians.
At first we thought my dad didn't want to participate, but it turns out he does want to talk. He just doesn't want to formalize things by wearing a microphone. How many checks bounced?
There was 12 or 13 of them that went back.
Right, so the checks just bounced.
Just bounced.
And then you lost part.
This is checks you cashed a month before, 2 months before.
In fact, sometimes you can't stop him from talking, and we just keep filming.
The young people, they got no chance for a job. Years ago, you, right out of high school, you go to steel mills, you go to General Mills, you go to Edison, wherever you wanted to go. First thing you heard was that they sent the Coast Guard out to get the ore boats.
Sometimes it's hard to follow everything. There are so many details, and a lot of conspiracy theories.
That's that bank in New York. That's
Chase Manhattan.
communist son of bitches over there. They give a lot of money to these countries, and then we send guys over there to fight them countries. That's Chase Manhattan.
But it's easy to see how that could happen. It's so hard to explain how something like a steel mill could just disappear. Now Wisconsin Steel is a toxic vacant lot. Instead of mills, gambling casinos line the shore of Lake Michigan. And landfills, instead of smokestacks, rise above the horizon. We use words like deindustrialization, and we try to explain it all with charts and graphs. But I want to understand people's stories.
People's stories?
Yeah, people's stories, just stories. You know, kind of like the American dream, like people moving up, people moving down, what it's like for neighborhoods, you know?
What happened and this and that?
Right. But I want to know what you think, Dad, like about the future of the country.
The what?
The future of the country, where is it going?
Oh, I don't know.
Generations of my family worked in the mills. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my dad. The mills were at the center of all of our lives. There are so many stories embedded in this landscape.
Looking west, the 95th Street Bridge.
Like Leslie in her anniversary video, I decided I want to get them all down, capture them all, before everything disappears.
Oh, look at that, another one. Blew the game.
So how come you're not rooting for any of them, Dad?
I picked the worst team and then I buy hats. Yeah, anybody can root for a winner, right? You root for the Yankees every day, every year.
My dad doesn't want to root for anyone. He's afraid he'll only be disappointed.
What's the score? 6-5? Yeah, 2 outs. Come on, man. Woo!
And we'll be back.
He doesn't want to root for anyone.
Lucky asses.
But sometimes he can't help himself.
Now I hope I have my facts straight. I believe this is where Chuck was born.
My dad was born in the middle of a snowstorm, on the dining room table in a small apartment just a few blocks from where my family lives now. When he was young, his nickname was Beetle. I think it was because he was small and fast. All of his friends had nicknames. Inky was born prematurely and spent time in an incubator. Peg lost a leg when he slipped and fell from a train while riding the rails drunk. My dad spent time in a reform school, although he would never tell us exactly what for. When he was 23, he started work in the mills. He expected to put in his 40 years and then retire with a pension. It's what everyone else in the mills expected too. It's hard to imagine that way of thinking now. You have to try, though, in order to understand just how shocking it was when Wisconsin Steel closed. It's no wonder my dad has remained stuck at that moment in time, replaying it over and over in his head.
They sent the Coast Guard out after the ore boat on the lake. They sent the Coast Guard out to get the ore boat, bring it in. We worked till 11 o'clock, rolling steel. That was it, lock the gate. They locked the gate? They just locked the gate and that was it. That's the way it went.
Sometimes people imply that workers like my dad were naive or stupid. What did they expect? Steel mills are businesses, not families. And businesses are obligated to maximize their profits. But mill owners spent years telling the workers that they were family.
Week after week for the past few years, it's been my pleasure to report to you on the industrial family that serves the nation, United States Steel.
If you look at the promotional literature of Wisconsin Steel and other companies, over the entire time of my dad's career in the mills, that's the message.
The industrial family that serves the nation is prologuing a potent future. Another plant, another product, another dream. In America, men can look at a hole in the ground and see a building, a factory, a finished product. They believe in the someday. They understand the expanding capacity of dreams. The sky is the limit in America.
All bullshit, you know. They just shut it down and knock it out. They didn't care. Knock it down.
So what changed? Was it foreign competition or workers demanding too much? Was it inevitable, like a hurricane? When I was young, I thought that if I knew exactly why the mill closed, maybe I'd understand my dad. But when I asked, he couldn't really tell me.
I thought Wisconsin was the worst because it was the first one. Nobody expected something like that to happen.
Now, when you ask these banks for loans, whenever they want to foreclose on you, they... Well...
As I got older, I thought about it more and more. Why had the mill closed? It all seemed so mysterious. The only thing left was a complicated paper trail, and I decided to follow it, step by step. What I found was a story that was anything but inevitable. It began with Wisconsin Steel's owner back in the 1970s, International Harvester, the all-American maker of tractors and farm equipment. Step 1. Harvester stopped maintaining the mill, even though it was still turning a profit. I remember my dad complaining that the mill was breaking down and that the quality of the steel was dropping. Step 2. As the mill fell apart, Harvester decided to put it up for sale. They were looking for a buyer, any buyer, and eventually they found one. A tiny technology company called Envirodyne that was only 1/10 Wisconsin Steel's size. The year before the sale, Envirodyne earned $246,000. But it bought Wisconsin Steel for $65 million, almost all of it borrowed money. Who would be crazy enough to lend money for a deal like that? Well, that led to step 3. The loan came from International Harvester. That's how badly they wanted to get rid of the mill. It's no wonder the U.S. government would later call the whole thing a sham transaction. When I asked my dad about it on tape, he couldn't explain the details, but he definitely knew the deal.
Selling it so the wording goes, but there was a lot of hanky-panky there between Harvester and Envirodyne. Envirodyne didn't even have the money to buy the fence around the place.
After the sale came step 4, where things got even more complicated. Harvester was not only the mill's seller and lender, it was still also its major customer. So when Harvester's workers went out on strike, Wisconsin Steel's business suddenly dried up. Because it couldn't sell steel to Harvester, the mill started missing loan payments to Harvester. And what did Harvester do? They grabbed the chance to foreclose on the mill so they could repossess the iron mines that had been put up as collateral for their loan. That's what the recall of the ore boat meant. The mill's other big lender, those communists at Chase Manhattan Bank, immediately foreclosed on the rest of the property. I still didn't understand why until I reached step 5, the real reason behind it all. Harvester had also stopped making contributions to Wisconsin Steel's pension fund. In fact, it owed the fund more than $60 million. All along, the whole point of selling the mill and forcing it into bankruptcy was to dissolve the fund and get out from under all that debt. So in that final step, workers like my dad lost their jobs, their paychecks, and their pensions. Everything. They weren't even allowed back in to get the tools or clothes they had left in their lockers.
So what happened to all that stuff?
Probably went down when they knocked the buildings down. Throw it in the garbage.
My dad wasn't alone. 3,400 other workers at Wisconsin Steel lost their jobs. And it wasn't just Wisconsin Steel. The region lost more than 100,000 workers in dozens of plant closings. And it wasn't just in Southeast Chicago. It was happening all over the country. In the end, more than 400,000 steelworkers lost their jobs. And it wasn't just the steel industry. More than 30 years after Wisconsin Steel closed, the U.S. has lost 7 million manufacturing jobs. Every one of those plant closings left a paper trail. And most of the stories are just as complicated as the story of Wisconsin Steel. Being complicated is the point. It's so hard to follow all those details. It's so much easier to say that workers wanted too much, or that they just couldn't compete. The year Wisconsin Steel closed, International Harvester's CEO was one of the highest paid executives in America. My dad could only find work as a part-time truck driver, a janitor, or a temp, and he was one of the lucky ones. He survived. He could sit on our porch and look out at the houses of steelworker neighbors who had committed suicide, had heart attacks, or drunk themselves to death.
The divorces and families splitting up and people that were trying to kill themselves, selling of homes and everything. Everything happened.
Ten years after Wisconsin Steel shut down, the local newspaper reported that nearly a quarter of the laid-off workers had died. But my dad has hung on. With no real pension, he finally retired on Social Security and retreated into our house. This wasn't a life my dad could have imagined when he was young. It's no wonder he has trouble understanding it all. I do too. And I'm starting to wonder if following the paper trail is enough. My husband and I settle into a routine. We return to the southeast side to film every couple of months, and the project keeps expanding. When we're at home, I do all the things I've been trained to do as an anthropologist and a researcher. We conduct interviews with friends and neighbors.
You want me to look there or?
Look at me.
Like Walter Stasinski, who also worked at Wisconsin Steel.
And now, Acme Steel just closed up, LTV Steel just closed up. All the rest of them are going to close up. And they can keep feeding money and feeding money. It's not going to happen. They're dinosaurs, just like me. So it's like anything else. I mean, you know, we have to accept the fact that it's over with.
We do research at the local Southeast Chicago Historical Museum.
No, I don't snort.
But mostly we just hang out.
Come on, I gotta go to bed.
What do you think, Chris? What should she do?
I'm not telling.
So why is your finger crooked, Dad?
This is the one I had cut off on the end. It was a chain on the crane.
So you lost the tip of that on the crane?
They sewed this one back on here.
What happened?
I had caught in the chain and the steel.
What were you doing?
We were picking up a load. And they have a chain you throw around the bundle of steel. Well, my finger got caught in there. Hot steel. Okay, whose turn?
Oh my Lord.
The mills were dangerous and dirty.
That's okay.
But my dad has always been proud of being a steel worker.
No!
I forgot about that. I only remember Grandpa losing his fingers. I forgot that you had
He
fingers.
lost 2, 3 of them.
And he
His
used
grandfather,
for it.
though, all they did was wrap his hand up and give him 8 cents. Here's his 8 cents, get in a street car, go to the doctor downtown.
That's what they told him?
Yep, that's what he done in them days.
Bill, you are the father of Charles, the bridegroom. What is your full name?
William Hamilton Walley.
William Hamilton.
Yes.
Oh, that's very aristocratic. And where were you employed when Chuck was born?
When Chuck was born, I was employed at the Valley Mall and Steel, 108 in the Calumet River. They had
My grandfather was proud too, with good reason. He started out as a poor farm kid, and after 49 years in the mills, he retired with a comfortable pension, a house, a car.
And when were you born?
1908.
Grandpa moved up thanks to the mills, while my dad fell. What a change in just one generation. And I'm realizing that if I want to know what losing the mills has really meant, I'm going to have to understand that difference. Little Grandpa, as we called him, came to Chicago to work in the mills in 1924. He spent most of his career as a crane operator at Valley Mold. He started out earning 45 cents an hour, working 12-hour shifts. Conditions were hard, and he saw a lot of men lose more than their fingers.
These great big ladles, maybe big as round as this room, maybe bigger. Them things were something like, I don't know, 2,800 degrees or something. They had boards across them. You'd walk. Yeah. And this guy, his buddy, fell in. And they were hollering for him with the crane on that end, and then this other guy on this end with a crane, and they come and grandfather said, he lowered the crane, the boom down, he had a chain on it, and his buddy got a hold of the chain, but he couldn't hang on because he was suffocated already. And that, they used to call that Death Valley.
What changed things for my grandpa and other workers was the union. I interviewed him about it just before he died.
We organized our union in 1937. We fit for 8 hours a day. That's what we fit for, and we got it. The old timers never got no pension. All of us guys that started back in the 20s, before that, nobody had any kind of a pension.
Little Grandpa was proud of his union, as much as he was of the work he did. I remember when everyone in the neighborhood felt that way. It seems so different now. Now when we hear about unions, we usually hear that they're corrupt, incompetent, or ineffective.
So nobody told you that?
No. Oh, we knew they were going down. Union knew they were.
But the union didn't tell the rest of them.
Well, they listen to politicians too.
Ron Sellers was saying it was a company union?
Yeah.
So it was?
Yeah.
The union at Wisconsin Steel, a smaller so-called independent union, hadn't done much. Later, the union's lawyer was found to be taking money from the company. At the same time, he was supposed to be representing the workers. So it's no wonder my dad could be skeptical about unions. But if there's anything to learn from my grandpa's story, it's how hard the union struggles of his generation actually were. In 1937, little grandpa went out on a sympathy strike with the workers of Republic Steel. Later, I learned the strike had led to one of the most important events in U.S. labor history. But no one ever talked about it at home. So I decided to ask my grandpa about it.
Do you remember the Memorial Day massacre over at Republic?
And I got a surprising answer.
Oh, yes. I was there. I was there.
You were there when they started shooting?
I was there, absolutely.
This is the story. On May 30th, newsreel cameras rolled as 1,500 strikers gathered in a field and marched toward the plant gates.
Well, we went through the prairie towards the Republic Steel. While Herbie, his wife, they was carrying the flag. See, I was back behind them.
At the gate, the strikers met Chicago police, who were being paid by Republic Steel. As the strike leaders demanded their right to peacefully picket, the police opened fire.
It started, the bullets started flying. I said, I'm not going to go any further, the hell with it.
Did you see anybody get hit?
Yeah, I seen 7 guys drop.
Ten strikers were killed, all of them shot in the back or the side as they tried to run away.
Did you know any of the guys who got shot?
Yeah, I know a couple of them, yeah. So, yeah, that was quite a day there.
This was brought about by an incident that had happened similarly on Friday evening, the 28th.
For us, the newsreel pictures are almost like home movies, but they make my dad really uncomfortable.
A view of the Millgate
I'm not sure if he knows who he should side with.
Evidently some police.
Well, they shot them all in the back and that in the sides. They were running then. They were going back. There was no need for the shooting because it...
Well, like Grandpa said,
Yeah.
Turn around and run.
Tear gas was done better. Right? Get everybody's eyes burning. They really run then.
Now I want you to have a look at the record. I want you to see what's happening. I want you to hear from the more than 280,000 workers in that industrial family.
Watching the massacre newsreel, we can't help thinking about another film, made only 10 years later, when little Grandpa was in the prime of his work life. Maybe this one is all just propaganda. Maybe it's just the product of a different time. The massacre was so shocking that the public began to support stronger union protections. So it actually helped make this other movie possible.
You fellows are pretty proud of your production records, aren't you?
We sure are, Mr. Hicks. Of course, you know I wasn't here during the war.
I know you did about a 4-year hitch, didn't you, Jim?
Air Force.
But your dad was here.
My dad's been here for 35 years. One of my uncles more than that. I've got relatives all over the place. Well, see you later.
Yes, relatives all over the place.
In the end, the things my grandpa fought for were exactly the things my dad lost. Decent wages, working conditions, a pension, and pride.
Oh, shit. God almighty.
Their stories were so different. But each of us only lives in our own time. And our understandings are shaped by our own experiences. Today, Republic Steel is long gone. But the prairie where the massacre happened is still there, along with an almost forgotten monument.
There's nothing written about it, about what it was, about what happened here.
Some old-timers will tell you that the 10 steel bars, in the shape of an eternal flame, stand for the 10 strikers who were killed. But according to company literature, the monument wasn't about the massacre at all. Instead, it's dedicated to Republic employees and area residents. 6 long bars symbolize Republic's 6 steel districts, and the 4 short bars mark the cardinal compass points from the plant to the community. Like so many things on the southeast side, it's hard to figure out the real story. And sometimes, it seems like there's more than one story to tell. We have other movies from this time, too. Home movies, taken by my great-granduncle Gust, who immigrated from Sweden in 1915. As a bachelor, Gust could afford indulgences, like a cheap 16mm movie camera and film. His movies show a whole different side of the neighborhood. Family celebrations, fun, community. We wish we knew who these people really were and what they were thinking. Only the images are left, but they make us wonder. Was Southeast Chicago a place of security and tight-knit families? Or a place of struggle and danger? There are 2 stories here, completely intertwined. We don't know how to separate them, but we do think we know who we can ask for help.
And I can see many of those faces look familiar. That lady in the flowered dress bending over, right there, with her fanny showing this way. I believe that's my great-uncle Hugo's wife, Aunt Florence. She was really a funny lady.
My mom's name is Arlene, but everyone, including her family, calls her Ozzie. or Oz, sometimes the Great Oz. For her, Uncle Gus, movies are more than just images. She knew these people.
And that's me making my entrance coming down the stairs.
My mom has always been connected to the neighborhood in a way my dad never was. There are people here who she's been friends with since grade school.
Are we on candid camera now?
Just ignore me.
And she still meets a group of them for breakfast at a local diner called the Lion's Den.
The Lion's Den, where Ozzy and I go for coffee.
30 years ago when the mill closed, these social connections were even tighter. When Leslie filmed her anniversary tape,
Wait, Marlene.
all she had to do was stand on the corner of 106th and Ewing.
Here's Marlene and Cindy.
And almost everyone who passed by wanted to send their best wishes to Oz and Chuck.
Say happy anniversary to Ozzy and Chuck.
25th anniversary.
One of our old classmates. Isn't this wonderful? Give us a puff on your cigar. We didn't do that in high school.
We decide to ask my mom for an interview, and unlike my dad, she agrees right away.
So could you just tell us, though, so we have a little narration, just tell us a little about, like, what you do and what your friends do and why you like to do it.
Well, like meeting at the den and...
Okay, what I do, a couple of the women that meet there for breakfast.
Yeah, go ahead and get that.
So a lot of people in the den know each other?
I think so.
So it has to be a complete sentence, otherwise we can't cut it.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, in the Lion's Den, a lot of people do know each other, and it's a place that they can always go to see a familiar face.
Perfect.
Actually, we should do it one more time.
Because the noise of the toilet. Say what you just said, because of the toilet noise.
Maybe we're going about this the wrong way. But what exactly are we after? When we come to visit, we stay upstairs in my parents' house, in a room with a silhouette portrait of my dad from when he was a kid. But the center of everything is downstairs, in my mom's dining room. The only reminder of my dad's life in the mills is the picture that hangs at the head of the dining room table. My dad found it in the trash and brought it home. For me, the picture represents the two worlds of my mom and dad. So far apart, but so dependent on each other. When I was little, the world that my mom built was the one that I lived in. It's so familiar that it's easy to pretend nothing has changed. In my dad's world, everything changed. And maybe that's what keeps pulling me back to it. As another way to try to get closer, we decide to sign up for a tour of one of the area's last remaining mills, U.S. Steel Gary Works, just over the state line in Indiana.
This is where the ore boats are coming in directly off the lake, docking on the other side of this slip of that other wall you see opposite from us.
Hi.
Hi, how is everybody today?
Good.
How you doing?
I'm doing super.
Good,
Hi,
good.
how are you?
How's Jim? I haven't seen him.
He's doing great.
Is he?
Welcome to landfill.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Inside, we're amazed by the scale of the space. We visit a rolling mill, like the one my dad worked in. There, the heat is so intense that the camera shuts down.
At one time, we had 25 to 30,000 employees here. Today, our average number we've been at for the last, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years, is probably about 7,500 employees. So again, there has been a significant downsizing. You just don't see a lot of people anymore. It's a very highly automated process.
You know, there was a lot of jobs you only worked 20 minutes out of the hour because you couldn't take no more heat. And you had to take, somebody took your place for 40 minutes.
So that was actually part of the schedule?
Yeah, that's the way the job called for because the heat was terrific.
So much of it's automated now. Like, there are very few people. We were going through the whole thing and there were hardly any people there. There were like a couple guys down on the floor here and there, but like very few people. It is something to see, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Chris and I kept saying, like, wow, that's really beautiful. Like,
if you've never seen it before, you got to see it once in a lifetime.
I gotta show you this. James Vegas brought this back from Arizona. Some little crate of tea. Isn't that cute? She gave each one of the ladies at the old lady table box of tea. Do you want it? I gave everybody a dish.
You can't ignore my mom's world for long, and its draw is powerful too.
No, you're so short, it probably wouldn't work.
We keep thinking about the mills, but what really matters to a lot of people is life in the neighborhood. Like my mom, her friend Leslie, who made the anniversary video, and Leslie's husband Jack, who lived just down the street.
Blind Barbara?
Yeah, he grabbed your ear.
Chuck, come on.
The poor guy, when you're a kid, if the old man gave you 50 cents to go get a haircut, he only charged about 20 cents. You had 30 cents left.
Yeah.
Really? So how would he do that again?
We walked out there.
Around them, even my dad opens up, and we catch a little of what it must have been like when they were all growing up.
Ozzy would introduce me to different people, and they would say, oh, hi, how do you do? It was like 4 years before they would say a whole sentence to me. I was not from the east side, and they would always say, and where are you from?
so is that just because everybody already knew each other? Or?
Because it was a closed society. And I swear to you that everyone is somehow related to someone else.
A closed society. It's a strange description for an area defined by immigration. But I know what Leslie means. When I was a kid, my grandparents lived across the alley. My cousins were a few streets over. There are home movies from this time, too. That's me, karate kicking my cousin. The men were the main breadwinners. My mom always said she didn't want a job. I think she knew that in our neighborhood, the real power was in ties to family and friends. But when the mills closed, that changed too. We decided to interview my mom again.
Okay.
Yes.
So why don't you talk then about the kinds of jobs you've had over the course of your life?
The kinds of job I've had haven't been too many. And then Wisconsin Steel closed, and I was compelled to go to work to help pitch in and buy groceries and stuff. So I worked for a temporary agency. They gave me an assignment out at the waste management chemical incinerator out on 126th Street. It was a nasty place to work, but it was helping put food on the table in a way my husband could not.
They sent your mother out here to work, and them guys come to the gate, they got these big asbestos suits on, and they was burning all them pellets. Very dangerous, them pellets.
Pellets of what?
They give you cancer and all that shit. And I said, they want you to work in there?
For my mom, it was one temp job like that after another, until things finally settled down.
I got a call and they asked me if I'd want to go out to the Walley refinery. And that was in June of 1984. And I have been there ever since. I don't like to call it temporary because I'm there all the time.
30 years as a temp with almost no benefits. That's part of my mom's world, too. And looming over it all, the mills, even though they've been gone for years. The mills were what first brought Swedes like Uncle Gust and his brother, my great-grandfather, to southeast Chicago. And also Poles, Serbs, Croatians, Italians. Each ethnic group created its own enclave, its own closed society. When my mom was little, her family's world revolved around the local Swedish lodge. Kids, young families, recent immigrants looking for a place. A lot of Uncle Gust's movies show Swedish picnics and other outings. That's my mom, standing next to Great Uncle Ralph playing the bass.
Officers, take your places. Sisters and brothers, be seated.
My mom still belongs to the lodge, and we ask if we can go to a meeting with her.
Mr. Chairman, my duties are to see to it that no one is admitted, not entitled to enter.
Brother Marshall, give me the password.
Well, we'll skip that.
Well, we're not going to do that.
No.
They don't want to say the password while they're being filmed.
Mr. Chairman, the password has been given by all present.
Andre Lodge, number 19, independent order Swithy is hereby declared in legal session. Has anybody else got anything to say?
We want to get warmed up.
Oh, are you cold?
As the old ethnic groups faded, new ones moved into the area. Sometimes mill owners played one group off against another, hiring and firing, driving down wages. It would be easy to blame ethnic conflict on the mills, but the mills were also where everyone worked together. It was outside, where those closed societies meant something else.
They wanted no Hispanics, they wanted no blacks, no nothing. And
They wanted
people
no Swedes either.
People would drive by with house bricks in their cars and just lob bricks at these people and break their windows. And
This girl lived on 108th and Capitol, and we were standing on the porch, and all of a sudden the brother and father took off and started to run, down the block. Well, unbeknownst to us, what they had is house bricks, because there was a I don't know if it was a black family in the car. They decided to give these house bricks at the car. I mean, that's the way it was,
those people had circulars printed up against the blacks and whatever. I'd go down to get the paper in the morning, and there'd be all these circulars stuck in the mailbox and under the door.
Meeting tonight,
Oh my goodness sakes! Come to the meeting. Come to the meeting.
Is the Southeast Side a place of refuge or a place of struggle? We're coming to understand that it's both.
Check the mic.
Howdy, howdy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, Dad. We figured we'd give it one more shot.
What?
Do you wanna try wearing the mic?
No,
All right.
read my paper.
Alrighty.
No.
That's fine. We just figured we'd give it one more effort.
No,
Alrighty.
thank you.
So what you reading in the paper?
I don't know. I read from front end to the back end.
Read the whole thing?
You pick out what you want to read.
Mm-hmm.
Half of it's made up anyway.
My dad still won't wear a microphone. But whenever we take out the camera, he starts talking.
Well, what are you going to do now?
I don't know. Hang out?
Christina, are you guys filming?
We're documenting the event.
Everybody sit down.
We spend Christmas at my Aunt Pat and Uncle Bob's house in the suburbs. I think I've always identified with my dad because neither one of us quite fit in. My dad has always trailed along in my mom's social orbit, and sometimes I think that's where I'd be too if the mills hadn't gone down.
Merry Christmas.
too.
What? I'll give you a hug on camera.
What'd you lose? Did you get something already?
All along I've wanted to tell the stories of my family and the neighborhood. But as we keep shooting, I realize that's just a way of avoiding the obvious. It's my story too. By this point, we've tried to interview both my mom and dad on video. And as much as I don't want to do it, my husband and I agree that now it's my turn.
So do you want me to ask you questions?
Mm-hmm.
Were you a happy kid growing up?
No. No.
You want to talk about that?
I think my past has always been very troubling to me. When I was 16, I think because things were so traumatic in my family and in the whole area when I left, I think I have a lot of sort of survivor's guilt that I got out. I don't know what to do with that guilt.
When I was little, my nickname was Peanut. I didn't grow hair until I was 4 years old. When you grow up on the inside of a closed society, you find out it's not just hard to get into, it's also hard to leave. When I think back about the time after Wisconsin Steel shut down, I remember the local Lions Club bringing my family free turkeys during the holidays. I remember Dad looking for work, and then as he got more depressed, just sitting on the couch, watching the white fuzz on the TV. We don't have images to show these things, but my sisters, my mom and I all remember.
Going for days without shaving.
He didn't talk, he quit talking to people.
I was afraid that year. And all I wanted to do was stay in with my dad. Because he was fragile, I thought he was going to do something to himself.
The mills supported my grandpa and almost destroyed my dad. They pushed my life in a completely different direction. It made me feel like I was turning my back on my family. When things got bad at home, I used to look at brochures from boarding schools, wishing I could be like those comfortable-looking girls, sitting around reading books on the lawn. Then a friend told me about a school called Phillips Exeter Academy, and I decided to actually apply. My mom let me do it, even though none of us had ever even heard of Exeter. My dad's fall made me a perfect candidate for an elite school interested in diversity. My parents wouldn't let me go until our family doctor convinced them. He'd heard of Exeter. And there was something else. My parents were starting to worry they might have to send me and my sisters to live with relatives. If I went away to school, there would be one less mouth to feed at home. So my Uncle Bill lent my dad his blue pickup truck, and the entire family drove me across the country to New Hampshire. While my little sister was eating hot dogs for dinner every night at home, I was sitting in classes alongside students with names like Getty, Firestone, Packard, and Coors. And according to the mythology of the American dream, all you need is a chance like that, and you'll be fine. But I wasn't fine. In classes, I couldn't believe how self-confident the other students sounded. I didn't say much. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, everyone would find out I wasn't smart enough to be there. Sometimes it was hard to keep going, but I knew I couldn't go home either. As a scholarship student, they asked me to give a talk to alumni, and I wrote out on 3x5 cards a speech that I meant to be a manifesto. I wanted to say that the people I grew up with were just as smart and just as worthy as the people who went to schools like Exeter. It was supposed to be a bold attack. On the day I gave it, I started crying and couldn't finish. Afterwards, some of the alumni told me what a good speech I had written, and that they were proud of me. I was ashamed at how grateful that made me feel. When I graduated, another parent at commencement asked my dad what he did. He just mumbled that he was in steel. The memory of him standing there on the lawn will always be with me. From that moment on, I was caught in between.
She's only 15. I can't let her do it. I said, you've got to let her do it. She's not going to learn anything here.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you guys said no for a long time, remember?
No, then they said, let her take the test.
Right.
Because I wouldn't get it anyway. That was
Because nothing will happen, so.
So then I took the test, and then I got in, and then mom was just like I was being the bad kid. Like,
I was what?
you treated me like I was the bad kid because I wanted to go to Exeter until Dr. Smith said,
Send her.
No.
yeah.
The only thing I worried about, and I would say the same thing today, I was a lot more supportive of you going there than a lot of other people. I compared you with Joni James.
Joni James?
Joni James.
Joni
Angela Boebel's sister,
just
the
as a
singer.
family thing, because Joni James, when she left. When she came back, she was a different person.
Where'd she go?
She went to New York.
Have
She
a
became
career.
a singer.
She had a hit
And when she came back,
A lot of hit records.
when she came back, the East Side wasn't good enough for her anymore. She had to buy her parents a house in wherever where they were so
Yeah, when are you going to start
lonely
doing
for a
that?
long time.
Yeah, when you gonna buy me a new house?
Yeah, if we had any money,
And that was the only reason
Oh, that one hasn't come true.
I was afraid of the idea because I didn't want that happening to you. I didn't want to lose my daughter.
You didn't want her to become something she wasn't. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Yes,
No.
it is.
No, it isn't.
I thought I was going to be a snob.
Is it any wonder that I've fallen for you? You're the spell I'm under, and I'm helpless, it's true.
I've never had a hit record. I became a professor, not a singer, which to my parents might sound even shadier. But either way, I've had opportunities. At the same time that opportunities at home are becoming fewer and farther between. Maybe that's what keeps me coming back. Trying to close the gap that opened when I went away. When we're not in Chicago, we're sifting through our footage, trying to put the story together out of the bits and pieces.
Say something?
My dad, little grandpa, Chuck on Union, knew about closure but didn't say. I spend a lot of time in a walk-in closet, recording voiceover narration. So do I try to do it like a journalist?
Just do it pretty flat. But don't, put on a fake journalist voice either. Just, can you give me a level?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The mills are gone, and I've moved away. But they go on affecting our lives. There are some things you can't even try to run away from.
All I know is when you seen all the smoke in this area, you knew there was a paycheck on the table every Friday. The kids were eating. The more smoke, the better.
So this film can go down for posterity. Leslie thought we should say our name. I'm Christine Joan Walley, the second child. I'm 21 now.
And you're going to go for a master's, Christine?
Yeah, master's or PhD, hopefully, but I'm going to take some time off personally.
Mm-hmm. 15 years after Wisconsin Steel closed, while I was in grad school, I was diagnosed with a rare form of uterine cancer. That's what brought me home to recover. My doctors had trouble making the diagnosis because I didn't have any of the risk factors. Uterine cancer usually affects older women. I was 27. My mom had never taken DES, an anti-miscarriage drug that can cause cancer in the children of women who took it. They told me there were no survival statistics because there weren't other patients like me. In the end, I was lucky. A radical hysterectomy saved my life, but it meant I could never biologically have children. Sometimes I feel like my dad. I keep going back to that moment in time, always wondering what caused my cancer. My doctors told me not enough studies had been done to say it was industrial pollution, and that you can't go by individual stories. My dad doesn't like the idea either. His theory was that I'd gotten cancer because because I was hit in the stomach by a softball when I was 12. But it wasn't just me. Maybe you can't go by individual stories. Like the ones about certain blocks in the neighborhood where almost every family experienced a cancer. Or my sister's friend, who'd had 3 separate cancers, all metastasizing to his brain. Some studies of the area do show elevated cancer rates. But either way, there are enough stories to make us want to find out what's actually in all that waste. So we decide to ask an expert, Craig Colton, a geographer who wrote the definitive historical report about industrial waste on the southeast side.
One of the things that really sets the southeast side apart from other parts of the city is that you had this just truly incredible concentration of industries. So a company like a steel mill, for example, one of the big volumes of waste was slag. They would simply dump it on the ground, but those slag waste would have toxic metals. They would pour in tars that would contain things like benzene, carcinogen. When you're burning coal, you have nitric oxide, sulfuric oxide, and there was also quite a bit of particulate matter, as they call it, that went downwind. Most of the liquid waste, they simply dumped them into the river. They would dump acids and processed water that was contaminated. There was a whole series of municipal landfills. Municipal refuse wasn't just kitchen waste, and we found that there was a lot of toxics that found their way into that. You begin to have what they called midnight dumpers, people who would, for a fee, go collect waste, bring it in a tanker truck, and then just open the valve and dump the waste out into the wetlands on the southeast side. So there's been a real history of using that area as a dump for the industries.
It all leaves me still wondering. Did my father bring toxic residue from the mill home on his clothing? Those pellets they burned at the incinerator, did I breathe in the fumes while I played outside? Were my parents exposed before I was even born?
I'm not a toxicologist, but I suspect people who lived in the neighborhoods were heavily exposed, and the workers even more so.
The mills are gone, and the jobs are gone, but the pollution is still here, in the land and the water, and in the cells of our bodies.
So this is it.
20 years later, I still have my medical records.
So this is some of the original diagnosis from when I was in New York.
It's another kind of paper trail. And it's also so complicated that sometimes it seems better to let it be, to move on. But even if I wanted to, I can't. The stories we collect about our lives make us who we are, and so do our bodies. We carry both along with us as we move into the future. With each visit home, my father is getting frailer.
All right, Dad, just for you, I made my first time mashed potatoes. All right, how they look?
Am I due for a pill or something?
I'm not sure. Is Dad due for a pill?
No, Unless he wants a pain pill.
Do you want one?
Yeah.
A pain pill?
Yeah.
Okay. You need one?
Yes.
In March, 2 years after we first asked him to wear a microphone,
I'll give it to him.
he's diagnosed with lung cancer. Maybe it's from 50 years of cigarette smoking. Or maybe it's from years of working next to coke ovens in the mills. Maybe it's both.
Mom, which one is your foot? One on my foot, which one? The one that's on Dad's oxygen. Oh, I didn't know.
At first he refuses treatment, and then he agrees to try chemotherapy.
Should we do a paper dollar?
Holy mackerel, this kid.
This
kid is...
One paper dollar?
Sure. What the hell?
Take me out to the ball game.
Hey! Oh, Dad! Dad, look what you did.
Yeah, I know.
You could have went out.
Yeah, I could have.
We're running the tape out, Dad. I said, we're running the tape out. I figured I'd shoot you doing the lawn. Yeah.
As spring turns into summer, my dad seems to rebound.
You look nice.
On the 4th of July, my husband and I are invited downtown to watch the fireworks from a friend's boat on Lake Michigan. Back in the neighborhood, the 4th is celebrated the same way I always remember it. Since my dad's been sick, I think about the future more and more. But I still can't seem to separate it from the past. I started out trying so hard to understand everything. The mill closing, the unions, the neighborhood, the pollution. At first, they were all just stories about things that had happened to my family. But now I know it's more than that. Takeovers, liquidations, job loss, income inequality. If you want to understand these things, you can begin with deindustrialization and what happened at places like Wisconsin Steel. Deindustrialization was supposed to clear away the past and bring a new economy. And that may be true in some places. But what about for places like this one, under the Skyway? A bridge built out of steel from the same mills it was designed to pass over. Near the end of shooting, we get a chance to film from a helicopter. As we fly over our house, my dad stands in the front yard, watching. It's the first time I've ever seen the place where I grew up from the air. The Calumet River that cuts the southeast side off from the rest of the city. The brownfields. The landfills. And the gambling casinos that have been built on the shore of Lake Michigan.
The steel mills are closing and the gambling casinos are open. And what are the gambling casinos going to do for us? Nothing.
The Casinos provide some jobs and tax revenue. But as my dad says, what do they actually make? But there are other futures too.
This is kind of like a whirlwind, and I'm going to ask now, is anybody that has to be back like hard and fast, like at 2:30 or...
To explore a different one, we sign up for another tour. This one organized by community activists Tom Shepard and Peggy Salazar. They want to see kids growing up in a neighborhood that's been revitalized.
Let's get on the bus.
Their vision blends past, present, and future.
This was the site of Wisconsin Steel beginning over here. It's contaminated property. We have more empty space here than all of the rest of the city combined.
I knew the mills were gone, and I thought this was an opportunity for the community to make a complete turnaround and become something different. Nothing static. Communities aren't static. 32,000 solar panels were installed on this site, and these panels will follow the sun, so they tilt with the sun to follow it, okay? How many people do you think it takes to operate this place on a daily basis? 2. You were close. 1. That's the other downside to technology.
The coal plant over there employed about 300-400 men and women.
Communities like mine, where there were steel mills, they were neighborhoods of immigrants, and they were able to build a life from that. Today, my community has many immigrants. The difference is we don't have the same number of opportunities.
But immigrants keep arriving, and like always, that's where new life in the neighborhood can really be found. There are still dreams here. My dad doesn't want to root for anything.
You can see him now, Chuck.
Except when he can't help himself. That fall, we noticed my dad is losing weight again.
This is Wisconsin Steel. Yeah, look at all this. That one's the history.
It doesn't seem so important to get him to wear a microphone anymore.
March 28th, 1980.
Although it was guaranteed Wisconsin checks issued before Friday. I don't know why I had 12 of them bounced in.
It just means we have to listen a little more carefully.
We started in 60. I want to get a good shot of you, Dad. Here, let me show you.
Oh, yeah.
Each time we come to visit, the day arrives when it's time to go. And we say goodbye, not knowing if we'll see my dad again.
All right.
Okay,
Love you, Dad.
Okay, love you.
There's too many buttons on this camera.
Really, the only one that matters is that one in the middle. That one right there.
At Christmas, I decide to stay longer.
Anyway,
and my husband goes alone.
You take care of yourself, okay?
All right, buddy.
Drink plenty of fluids. That's your job.
That's it. That's
Pretty easy job, but I know sometimes it's hard to eat and drink.
That's a nice one of the two of you. My dad lets me keep filming, but in the end, it's too private. Looking back, I'm ashamed that I intruded with the camera. And we decide not to show the footage. When my dad dies, it's in the back bedroom of our house, late one night during a snowstorm, a setting and night a lot like the one when he was born. My sisters, my mom, and I are with him. I always wanted my dad to speak, and now I wonder about speaking for him. But in telling these stories, I feel like I'm speaking with him too. We all speak for and with each other. And what really shapes our understanding is the act of sharing. Not long after my father died, my husband and I traveled to Vietnam and brought home a grandchild he would never see. When we go home now with our son, so much has changed, but the past keeps breaking through. Before the mills closed, I always assumed that my family's stories and those of other working people actually mattered. And I want them to matter again. I want to tell these stories about my dad and our family to our son. And I want to know what stories he'll tell about his own life someday. It's still easy to pretend that everything is frozen in time. But of course, nothing is static. As our son grows, we're still returning to the southeast side. And the neighborhood keeps changing too. The diner where my mom met her friends recently burned down under mysterious circumstances. The Republic Steel Monument has been moved off the plot of prairie where the Memorial Day massacre happened. Our son recently became the youngest member of my mom's Swedish lodge. And when we traveled back to Exeter together, I realized that I'd spent my first day ever there, completely at ease with myself.
You guys want to hug again?
Every return also means another departure.
Smile at the camera.
Thanks for everything.
Chicago, 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 Chicago.
As we move on, the things we lose become part of who we are. And understanding what's been lost is the first step in knowing where to go next.